Donald Trump. Just saying his name gets a reaction, doesn't it? Love him or hate him, you can't deny he shook things up. Before Trump, politics was a buttoned-up affair. Politicians spoke carefully, measured their words. Trump, he threw out the playbook. He was loud, brash, and said what was on his mind, no matter how outrageous. He was a reality TV star who became president. And boy, did he know how to put on a show. Trump's communication style was like nothing we'd seen before. It was brash, unfiltered, and often controversial. Forget long speeches and nuanced arguments. Trump preferred short, punchy statements that grabbed attention. Trump spoke directly to the people, often bypassing traditional media. His favorite platform? Twitter. With just 280 characters, he could set the news agenda for the day. He used simple language, repeated his points constantly, and wasn't afraid to throw in a nickname or two. This was a deliberate strategy to make his messages stick. Crooked Hillary, Lying Ted, Sleepy Joe, these weren't just insults, they were branding. By labeling his opponents, he framed the narrative in a way that was hard to shake off. This direct approach resonated with many Americans, especially those who felt ignored by the political establishment. They saw in Trump a voice that echoed their own frustrations and desires for change. They saw Trump as someone who spoke their language, someone who understood their frustrations. His rallies were filled with enthusiastic supporters who felt empowered by his words. But his critics saw something else. A dangerous demagogue who trafficked in misinformation and stoked division. They argued that his rhetoric was harmful, creating an environment of hostility and distrust. The media often found itself in a reactive position, constantly responding to his latest tweet or off-the-cuff remark. This created a cycle of constant controversy and debate. Analysts and experts were divided. Some praised his ability to connect with the average voter, while others warned of the dangers of his unfiltered style. The nation itself seemed split, with passionate supporters on one side and equally passionate detractors on the other. Trump's communication style was a double-edged sword, galvanizing his base while alienating others. Whether you saw him as a straight-talking leader or a Twitter tyrant, there's no denying that Trump's approach to communication changed the political landscape forever. Trump understood the power of social media like no politician before him. He recognized that in the digital age, the ability to communicate directly with the public was a game changer. Traditional media outlets, with their filters and editorial biases, could be sidestepped entirely. He used Twitter as his personal megaphone, bypassing traditional media and speaking directly to the public. With a single tweet, he could reach millions, unfiltered and unedited. This direct line to the masses was unprecedented. He announced policies, attacked opponents, and spread his message. 280 characters at a time. Whether it was a major policy shift or a personal attack, his tweets were newsworthy events in themselves, often dominating the news cycle. This gave him incredible control over the narrative. He could set the agenda for the day, ensuring that his perspective was the one being discussed. This level of control over public discourse was something no politician had achieved before. He could shape the conversation, set the agenda, and even drown out negative news with a barrage of tweets. When faced with criticism or scandal, he often responded with a flurry of tweets, shifting the focus and overwhelming the news cycle. This was both exhilarating and terrifying. On one hand, it democratized communication, giving a voice to those who felt ignored by traditional media. On the other hand, it created an environment where misinformation could spread rapidly. It gave a voice to the voiceless, but it also amplified misinformation and fueled conspiracy theories. The same platform that allowed for direct communication also became a breeding ground for falsehoods, making it difficult to discern fact from fiction in the digital age. America First was more than a slogan for Trump. It was his guiding principle. He promised to put American interests above all else, even if it meant alienating allies or upending decades of foreign policy. He slapped tariffs on China, renegotiated trade deals, and pulled out of international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal. His supporters cheered him on, arguing that he was finally standing up for America. His critics were horrified, warning that he was damaging America's standing in the world and undermining global cooperation. Section 5, Enemy of the People, the media's new reality. Trump's relationship with the media was combative, to say the least. He constantly attacked the press, calling them the enemy of the people and accusing them of spreading fake news. This relentless assault on the media had a profound impact. It eroded trust in traditional news sources, fueled the rise of partisan media outlets, and made it even harder to have a shared understanding of reality. Section 6, the outsider's champion. Trump's rise was fueled by a wave of populism, a deep distrust of elites, and a belief that the system was rigged against ordinary people. His campaign tapped into the frustrations and fears of many Americans who felt that their voices were not being heard. They believed that the traditional political class had failed them, and they were looking for someone who could bring real change. He presented himself as the ultimate outsider, a successful businessman who would shake up Washington and fight for the forgotten man. Trump's message was clear. He was not a politician, but a deal-maker who could get things done. He promised to drain the swamp, to take on the special interests, and to put America first. This message resonated with millions of Americans, particularly those who felt left behind by globalization, ignored by the political establishment, and frustrated by the status quo. They saw in Trump a champion who understood their struggles and who was willing to fight for them. His rallies became a place where they could express their discontent and find solidarity with others who felt the same way. Trump gave them a voice, a sense of hope, and a target for their anger. He tapped into a deep well of frustration and turned it into a powerful political force. For many, he was more than just a candidate. He was a symbol of their desire for change and their rejection of the status quo. His ability to connect with these voters was a key factor in his rise to power. Section 7, a complicated legacy. Trump's presidency was a rollercoaster ride of controversy, scandal, and policy upheaval. He appointed 3 conservative justices to the Supreme Court, enacted tax cuts, and rolled back regulations. But he also sparked an impeachment trial, faced accusations of obstruction of justice, and oversaw a deeply divisive presidency. His legacy is complex and contested. His supporters view him as a hero who fought for their interests and challenged the status quo. His detractors see him as a threat to democracy who undermined democratic norms and stoked division. Section 8, Trumpism. After Trump, what's next? Even though Trump is out of office, his influence on American politics is undeniable. He ushered in a new era of populism, shattered political norms, and reshaped the Republican Party in his image. The question now is, what happens next? Will Trumpism fade away, or will it continue to shape American politics for years to come? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, American politics will never be the same.